Grew up in Mobile, Alabama on welfare. There were 7 kids crammed in a little 600 square foot shack. My mother fed us on $100 a month from the welfare department. I was a rebellious teenager, got in a fight with my stepdad, got kicked out of the house, had no money, and my friend helped me bum up $39.95 for a Greyhound bus ticket to Houston, Texas. I arrived in Houston with literally 25 cents in my pocket. Then I met my wife, Denise Conjet Antoinette Pinella. So you marry an Italian family, you don't get wedding presents, you get cash. And we got $3,000 and started my first business, my service company, out of the trunk of my car. Spent that entire $3,000. That company over the years has become the most respected company of its kind in the Houston area. And people wanted to know how I was doing it, how was I building systems, and how do I have a business that I'd have to actually be there. And so I started 26 years ago. I started training other people on my systems and how to do it. And so today we coach in over 100 different industries in 20 different countries.
I'm curious just to get below the surface of the polished, perfect answer of where are you at today? How are you different? What are you excited about?
Probably care more about people today. Because I realize how good it could be for them.
Hey, my friend, welcome back to the War Plan Podcast. I have a treat for you. I'm joined by a friend of mine. Honestly, I haven't talked to him in years, not on purpose. We're just busy and went our separate ways, and I got to reconnect. Mr. Howard Partridge. A lot of you probably know who he is. He was trained by Zig Ziglar. He's been a business coach for 26 years, one of the wisest people that I know. Unbelievably successful small business out of Houston, does millions in revenue. He's just impacted so many people, the ripple effect from actually being in the trenches doing it and also helping thousands of people do it. I had a treat to be able to snag him away at an event he was speaking at in Dallas, and now you get to benefit because of it. So Howard, thank you. How are you?
I am phenomenal.
That's your favorite word, right?
Yes, it definitely is.
And as busy as you are on the car ride over here, you mentioned you're working on like your 15th book or something.
Yeah.
How do you squeeze that into everything else that you do?
A little bit every day.
Yeah,
just
bite-sized
write a little
chunks?
bit every day, and hopefully on Saturdays have a little extra time. So this past weekend, I'd probably spent maybe 3 hours, maybe 4 hours writing on Saturday. But writing the book is just the beginning. That's not the hardest part.
Tell me about that.
Well, once you go through the editing process, then you got to read the whole thing. Then you got to, look at what the editors do to it. And then there's the publishing process. And then there's the selling process. Really, you typically, at least I don't make money on books, but money comes in because it's a lead generator, and that produces coaching clients and, builds connections and things like that. And, it's a business card. It's just another business card. I have a lot that I want to share with people, and I'm always thinking of ideas, and I happen to like to write. And so I write all the time. And now I'm working on a book right now. There's another one right behind that, another one right behind that. And those are books that other people want me to do. And that doesn't even include the dozen that I have in my mind that I'd like to do.
It's crazy. I'm working on my first book, so I'm going to definitely need to lean on your brain.
Absolutely, 100%.
As I go through the
I've got a
process.
methodology for it, and so.
Well, it seems
simple.
like with business, finishing something, the last 10% takes as much effort as the first 90%.
Yeah.
Is that true? Do you agree with that? It feels like just finishing something is the same amount of work as the first big
Well, it
chunk.
might be because entrepreneurs are typically starters, not necessarily finishers.
Amen
we
to that.
start a lot of stuff, but we need people to finish stuff.
It's like, oh shoot, I got to actually focus on the boring details now, not just the big picture.
Right.
Okay. Well, could you spend a few minutes? I have a lot of questions I want to ask you, but tell us your backstory, because you were born into a trust fund, right? You had
absolutely.
hundreds of millions at your disposal.
Like gold everywhere, rose petals that I walked on.
Take us back to the beginning.
Well, I tell people that I'm originally from L.A., Lower Alabama.
Yeah.
And my wife doesn't laugh at my jokes either, so it's okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I grew up in Mobile, Alabama, on welfare. There were 7 kids crammed in a little 600 square foot shack. And the roof on that house was so bad that every time it rained, we had to get out all the pots and pans to catch the leaks. My mother fed us on $100 a month from the welfare department. I don't care when that was. It just wasn't a lot of money.
That wasn't a lot of money back then either. That was nothing.
Right. Yeah. And so when you grow up in an environment like that, at least for me, I was a rebellious teenager, got in a fight with my stepdad, got kicked out of the house, had no money. And my friend helped me bum up $39.95 for a Greyhound bus ticket to Houston, Texas. I arrived in Houston with literally 25 cents in my pocket.
25 cents.
25 cents.
True story.
Yeah.
25 cents.
Yeah, I'm doing one of my conferences next week, and it happens to be called the Phenomenal Profits Conference. And I was curious as I was putting my slides together how much 25 cents in 1978 would be today. $1.23.
Really? Wow, that much?
$1.23.
Good
so
Lord.
That's basically what I
You're right.
in today's terms, $1.23.
You can't buy a full size Milky
You can't
Way.
buy a bottle of water for $1.23.
No.
Yeah. So anyway, I became a waiter, and I worked in all these really high-end restaurants. And these restaurants back then, this was in the 80s. We had a lot of like tableside cooking, and so I would like had a tuxedo on, make stuff at the table like steak Diane, bananas Foster, cherries Jubilee.
The flambeau. What is it called?
Flambe.
Flambe, yeah.
You know, setting stuff on fire inside at that age was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to have my own business. I just didn't have any money to speak of. I was still just making enough money really to pay the rent. Then I met my wife, Denise Conjette Antoinette Pinella. Now that's Italian.
That's her actual name.
That's her actual name.
Denise Conjette
Antoinette Pinella.
Okay.
That's Italian. She's from New Jersey. I'm from Lower Alabama. This is going to be a good match, right?
Yeah.
So when I went to New Jersey with her, she told me to keep my mouth shut because I had an accent. Anyway, so you marry an Italian family, you don't get wedding presents, you get cash. And we got $3,000 in wedding money. The relatives, the tradition with the Italians is there's a little purse that's made to match the dress, the wedding dress.
Okay.
And it's the perfect size for an envelope with cash in it.
Oh, really?
So each of the relatives would come, and there would be, you know, $100 or $200 or $500, you know, whatever, and in it, depending on how much they liked you or how wealthy they were. Anyway, so we had $3,000, and there was a friend of the family, same age as me, 23 at the time, tooling around a little red Mercedes convertible. And that got my attention. I said, I want to know what that guy does, and I want to know if it's legal. So it
50-50 chance.
Yeah. Maybe less than 50-50. And so turned out that he had his own business. So I get back to Houston after our wedding, started my first business, my service company, out of the trunk of my car, and spent that entire $3,000.
Was your wife happy about that?
She
approved?
was not. See, you know the script. She was not thrilled about that. You're going to do what with all the money that we have?
You could have bought like a water bed. Those were popular at the time, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who started with a waterbed business. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway, so that company over the years has become the most respected company of its kind in the Houston area. And
it's true. I know many people that have actually been there, toured your guys' facility, all of it. It's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got that business systematized, turnkey, it's very high end. And people wanted to know how I was doing it, how was I building systems, and how do I have a business that I didn't have to actually be there. And so I started 26 years ago. I started training other people on my systems and how to do it. And so today we coach in over 100 different industries in 20 different countries.
And you were mentored. Look, for all the youngins out there, just like pause this and go binge watch some Zig Ziglar videos because he's an OG legend. All the personal development guys all wrote, even people like Tony Robbins and everybody learned from Zig. And you knew him. How does that story or meeting him, was that after you were successful? How'd you go from rebellious kid that didn't know anything, and this is a very complex question, to having a success mindset in the first place? Who was speaking into your life? What other things happened?
Well, actually, when I was a kid, I mean, I always had this idea that I could do better than other people, and I would, do odd jobs to make money. I just never kept any of that money, And so when I started my business, I was a hustler. I was, from restaurant training. I knew customer service. I knew how to create a high-end experience, and so my clients need me there at 5 a.m. I'm there at 5 a.m. You need me there at 9 p.m. I'm there. And so it's really built on customer service. And then in 1997 was when my business really started to take off. I read Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth. Mm-hmm. He's a friend now. He's a neighbor, actually. He moved actually to Texas. I don't know if you knew that or not. But
no, I didn't know that.
You should interview him on your podcast.
Yeah.
I'll connect
He
you
did
guys.
a web interview for one of our Conquer online things years ago.
Yeah. Anyway, so Michael lives about 20 minutes from me now. But like a lot of people, I read the E-Myth. I did what the E-Myth said, and I built systems in my business, brought on a couple partners. And really, my mentorship at that time was mostly just through books and things like that. But one thing that really helped me was, even though we had revenue coming in, we had great clients, great service, I wasn't really the best leader around. And so I started getting some leadership training and reading leadership books and things like that. So. But the way that I got connected with Mr. Ziglar was I started my coaching business, and I was mainly in, one niche at the time. Mm-hmm. And I met Mr. Ziglar at a big event, called on the Ziglar Corporation, ended up having him come and speak at my conference, got to know Tom Ziglar and his daughters. Tom is his son. And one thing led to another, and I started doing video webcasts for them from time to time. I'd have lunch with Tom. And long story short, there's a whole story of this. I could write a whole book just on this story. But my coaching company became the exclusive small business coaching company for the Zig Ziglar Corporation. So Mr. Ziglar was still alive at that point. And in fact, I was in Australia teaching for Ziglar when Mr. Ziglar passed away in 2012. Wow. So I knew him personally, and he was, what I loved about him is that he was not just the same man backstage as he was on stage, maybe even a better man, because he really cared about people. He really loved people. His favorite quote, his most famous quote that a lot of speakers use.
I already know what you're going to say.
Yeah, and sometimes they get it wrong, okay? But he said, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what it is that they want. And so there's a whole breakdown of that quote. First of all, everybody wants the same 9 things out of life. They want to be happy, they want to be healthy, they want to be at least reasonably prosperous, they want to have friends, they want to have peace of mind. They want to have good family relationships. They want to feel secure. They want to have hope for the future, and they want to love and be loved. And if you help enough other people get those things, have those things in their life, then it's gonna come back to you. So when he was here with us on earth before he passed away, I used to tease him. And I said, Zig, you stole that from Jesus, because Jesus said, give, it'll be given back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And he just laughed and said, well, I know him personally, so it'll be all right. He was so witty.
He's so witty. He's so good.
Just a wonderful person. I mean, we literally had to, how people meet somebody famous and you have to pull them away because they want to just keep talking? We had to pull him away because he wanted to keep just talking to you, and he was so interested. And he said his biggest regret was that he didn't get to know all the people that knew him.
Wow.
Yeah. Incredible human
my
being.
son who you just met, Maverick, my oldest son.
Yeah.
We have a whole herd of Latimers over here, but he
314
loves,
was it?
yeah, 314. Hopefully with grandkids. Maverick, get busy, okay?
That'll change your life.
He loves Jordan Peterson. And we went to see Jordan Peterson speak in Michigan, and I paid extra for like the little photo shoot. You know, you shake his hand for 2 seconds type of thing. And Maverick had kind of rehearsed what he was going to say because Jordan Peterson is like this epic guy. And so Maverick gets up there and he goes, hey, Mr. Peterson, you changed my life. And to both of our surprise, Jordan Peterson actually cared, right?
Yeah.
So he bends over, he looks at Maverick in the eye, and he goes, in what way?
I love it.
And then Maverick had no answer at all. And so it was super awkward. But he was like, and then we kept moving, right? But it's because he actually cared.
Right.
You know, so you're saying Zig was like that.
He was like that, yeah. Yeah.
What about the role faith played? You know, we talk about Jesus around here because it's kind of like the whole point. I mean, he created everything, and everything's bound together and held together through him, made by him, for him. It's epic. Quantum mechanics and solar systems and galaxies and Howard Partridge. How did that become a part of your life, and what does that mean in terms of your business?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, we went to a Baptist church, and I heard the word, I knew the word, but, you know, as soon as I was 15 years old, I started smoking pot and just forgot all about church and all that stuff. It was just a wild kid. And when I was 27 years old, I had been married 3 years, I had my business 3 years, and this incredible, amazing, I don't even understand it to this day, feeling came over me that I needed to change. And I had 3 guys working with me at the time, and the same thing was happening to them. It's just like this weird, like, almost oppressive, like, you got to change or else, you know? And it went on for about 6 weeks. We talked about the Bible. We got the Bible out. We looked at the Bible. We talked about God, and it just wouldn't leave me. And about 6 weeks in, it was December of 1987. It was slow. It was cold in Houston, which is unusual. It was bitter cold that day. And 2 of the guys that worked for me were sharing a rental house. And I was over there, and we were playing music, getting high and everything. And I was just sitting on the floor against the sofa. And I started thinking about all the conversations that we had and what was happening to me. And I just said, you know what? If this is all there is to live for, I don't think it's worth it. So I made my decision to follow Christ right then and there. And I got up and I told those guys, I said, you know, we've been talking about this for 6 years, or 6 weeks. And I said, I made a decision. I'm going to follow Jesus. And they were like, yeah, we'll see. I walked out that door a different person. The next day, I literally felt the weight of sin lift off of my shoulders. When I looked in the mirror, there was this glow. And I had a marijuana habit for 12 years, from the time I was 15 years old till the time I was 27 years old. It was gone immediately. I'd tried to quit before.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, it just gone.
It's delivered.
It was a miracle. It just delivered.
That happened to me with alcohol.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually was about to go pound about 6 beers in my mid-20s because I like beer. It tastes amazing, makes you feel good. And and I heard God say, stop it, I'm warning you. I don't hear God say stuff like to me.
Yeah.
So this was a very distinct thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't mean. He wasn't like, I'm going to hit you with a stick. I'm an angry dad. It was like loving, but it was clear, and it scared me. I started shaking. I mean, I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell anybody. I went and laid on my face in my bedroom and prayed, saying, I can't stop. But I want to obey. Like, yes, okay, yes, I will stop. But it's impossible, so I can't. And as I'm praying this, I literally felt something pull off of me.
Wow.
And when I woke up the next day, it's as if I had never even tasted it.
Wow.
It was insane.
Yeah.
And there's more to that story too, because then I started drinking again like years later, and it was a whole thing. But deliverance is real. This stuff's real.
Yeah.
And you just had that pivot. And
Just like that.
Did you already have your business at that point?
Yeah, so I had my business 3 years. There's several miracles that happened along the way. Initially, for one, my wife had gone to New Jersey to visit her parents. She hated my marijuana habit. I didn't know it until years later, but she wasn't coming back.
She was bouncing.
Yeah. And last month, July actually, so this is a couple months ago, we celebrated our 40th anniversary.
Woo, what? 40 years.
40.
That's awesome.
So that was the first thing. So the first thing was getting delivered from marijuana. Second thing, my wife was going to leave me, and the timing, like when I made that decision, I talked to her on the phone, and she said, well, I'm not sure really what that means, but you're going to be home at night instead of out smoking pot with the boys. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's a change. And then my dad, who never wanted to talk about the Lord, just miraculously got saved on his deathbed. That's a whole story. That was all in the first book that I wrote. And throughout most of my books, not all of my books, but a lot of my books, I tell stories about, just stuff, miracles that God has done. And then a couple years ago, my publisher, I was just exchanging some emails back and forth with my publisher. He says, I've always wanted one of our business authors who's a believer to write a book called The Monday Morning Christian, How to Live Out Your Faith at Work. And I feel like you would be the perfect person to do that, which of course I was totally floored and honored and, okay, let me think about it. So I went out to the beach and I started working on it with my notebook, and that book just literally fell out of me.
It's anointed.
It just fell out of me. So I have a book that I need to send you. It's called The Monday Morning Christian. I changed the subtitle, How Living Out Your Faith in Business Leads to Phenomenal Success. See, there's, there's not living, it's not living, building your business God's way is the best way. It's the only way. Because if he created us, which he did, and you know him, then he's going to lead through you. Anyway, so one of the major points of this book is what happens to people after they get saved. This is what happened to me. I want to go into ministry. I want to shut my business down, right. Go travel, preach the gospel, and God showed me that my ministry is in business.
Fire right there.
Yeah.
Well, you probably are from, we didn't talk about this before, but R.G. Letourneau? You know R.G. Letourneau?
I don't.
Oh my gosh. I'll show you. I have a signed book by him. He's a Texas entrepreneur, but gave away hundreds of millions of dollars. He's basically the reason we won World War II. He invented the offshore oil rig, never had more than an 8th grade education, died with 300 patents. Unbelievable.
Wow.
And, but he went to his pastor and said, he had a stutter. Mm-hmm. He's like, he just felt like I'm worthless as a Christian. And his pastor said, RG, God needs businessmen too. And that was like his whole epiphany.
Yeah. So that's what that book is about. There's 4 parts of it. And it really, I just share how God has used my business as a platform for ministry, team members getting saved, clients getting saved, miracles that God has done. It's just unbelievable.
So awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally is ministry. I think it's amazing. And good for you. It's so cool. The ripple effect. Let's talk about business coaching for a minute.
Sure.
Because you get to look under the hoods of all these businesses, and everybody feels like their situation is totally unique. But it's like, no, like all businesses the same except for a few different lipstick on it, right?
Yeah.
What have you learned working with all these people? Learned about humans, about behavioral psychology about what motivates people. The people you've seen go from stuck to breakthrough, or the people that stay stuck. What are your general thoughts on that category? You've done this a long time.
Yeah, I definitely believe that it starts with identity, 100%, and then so I wrote a book called FTI, Failure to Implement, right? Mm-hmm. So there's people who implement and people who don't.
Right.
You're an implementer. Yeah. I'm an implementer. And if you implement, even if you get, 70% of it wrong and you're right 30% of the time, you fail your way to the top.
Change your life.
Yeah. Brian Tracy's a great friend of mine nowadays.
Okay.
I was just with him in San Diego a few days ago. We're going to write a book together. He asked me to write a book with him. And it's going to be all about financial success. But if you listen to Brian Tracy, he says that. He says, look, you don't have to get it right every time. But the fact is that when you really break it down, and what I share in FTI is that an FTI is the number one reason that people don't reach their biggest dreams and goals, number one reason that businesses don't grow or do as well as they could, is not because people don't know what to do. It's not because they don't know how to do it. It's just because they don't do it. And that's what coaching is really all about, is to help people get the breakthrough, get the perspective, and facilitate a vision so that it creates desire, right? So in that book, I share that people only change because of desperation or inspiration. Mm-hmm. So when you're desperate and your back is against the wall, you got to take action. Mm-hmm. The problem with desperation is that once you get back in the comfort zone, you'll tend to just backslide again, right?
Right.
So somehow, if you start out with desperation, which is not a problem, you got to somehow move all the way through the comfort zone into inspiration, right? Mm-hmm. And inspiration is when you have that burning desire that Zig talked about, that Napoleon Hill talks about, that Brian Tracy talks about. And desire comes from a vision. And here's what I want people to hear. The reason we don't have desire is because we don't have a vision. The reason we don't have a vision is because somewhere down in our subconscious belief system, we don't really believe that could happen, that will happen.
Which is probably, back to your point, an identity issue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah. We didn't talk about any of this. I've noticed exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Because fear can be a really good starter, but I notice a lot of people start a company because they're running away from something, not because they're running towards something.
Bingo. Yeah.
And so they had a boss that they didn't like. But what's fascinating to me is they'll reach a level which is congruent with their identity, mm-hmm. and they stay there. Mm-hmm. But what's so funny is someone will say, I can't grow my business. It's impossible. I can't get new customers. But then what'll happen, I call it the panic number. My theory is everybody has a panic number with their bank account. And it's different for everybody. But, for me, when we were poor in the trailer park, if I got below like $200, it was like, I got to do stuff now.
Now it's like 2 million, below 2 million, like, ooh.
Whatever it is, it's like, it's this thing. I think it's also why lottery winners, 80% of them are bankrupt within 5 years. There's incongruence with identity and so this person that's at this level, maybe $10,000 is their panic number. All of a sudden, when they're at 9,800, they move heaven and earth,
that's right.
Solve the problem, get back above the panic number, and then relax again.
Yeah.
Which means they could have went and got new customers and done all the things every day, but they don't.
Right.
To your point, which is it's an identity thing.
Right. Well, and it's also the difference between motivation and inspiration. Okay. In that case right there, that example right there, motivation comes from an external source. Like, wow, my bank account's going down. I got to do something. Or maybe in a positive sense, hey, if I do X, Y, and Z, I go to Hawaii or I get a new car or whatever, right? You're positively motivated. Mm-hmm. But that's external. Inspiration is when a fire starts kindling on the inside and the headlights go on and you finally see something you didn't see before and you're like, Not just that you want it. That's one level of desire, but I got to have that. I got to be that. I got to do that.
Myron has a teaching. If you do a word study in the word desire, it basically means from the king or of the king. D-E of, S-I-R-E, sire, your sire. Meaning the good desires that you have were placed there on purpose. You know, the Bible says before the foundation of the world, God created good works for you, which means he made the stuff that we're going to do before he made us.
Yeah.
And these things that are in us, these visions, you got to know who you are to see the vision.
That's right.
And you got to have the vision to...
And you got to know whose you are.
Know whose you are.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It gives me goosebumps, the whole thing. Because business is like, I forget, I would give credit for this quote, but I don't know where it comes from. But business is personal development with a compensation plan attached to it.
I like it.
Some smart person said that, you know. Because to grow in business, you have to just become a different human, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, what are some other, I guess, tips for someone to overcome FTI, failure to implement, your book? How do they do it? How do they shake things up? How do they pattern interrupt themselves? What are a couple steps in the order of those steps to get a breakthrough?
There's 4 keys. Number 1 is inspiration. And the way that you get inspiration is by standing around people who are already doing what you want to do. That's why podcasts like this are great, because somebody's going to say, God, if he can do it, I can do it, right?
Exactly.
Or they'll be like, wow, that was really inspiring. That's really motivating. Like, yeah, and it gives you more energy, right? So that's what's so good about things like this, because you've been very successful. And when people listen to your podcast and they hear your guests, they're like, they did it. I can do it.
Right.
Okay. What one man can do, another can do. What one woman can do, another can do. The question is, should you? And so there's a whole thing about, you know, goals and life goals and, you know, your life purpose, and everybody's life purpose is different. For example, I built a dream home in Destin, Florida. It's truly my dream home. And next to my favorite beach in the whole world, it's 3.5 miles of unspoiled beach. And I wrote a whole book just about that, you know, and my neighbors are super rich. Okay, like
There's levels to this world, isn't there?
super rich. But guess what? They're never there. They're there, and some of them, when they are there, on the phone the whole time, and you know, they see me sitting out there on the beach. Like, there's rich, there's super rich, and then there's blessed. So I feel blessed, you know. I borrowed that from someone else. I said, yeah, that's it. That's the level I'm blessed, you know.
Yeah, definitely something I think about, because a lot of I feel like I live in 2 worlds. I have a lot of relationships with people doing really big things. But the other hand, it's just regular people. They're coaching T-ball. They have a small service company, a local business, and I love these people. This is what I am, you know. And but what I notice on the super motivated fighter jets is that the yardstick just keeps moving in perpetuity.
Yeah.
And then they die. Or, you know, I think some Mormon leader said no amount of success in business can compensate for failure in the home. Right? So they kind of trade. It's like trading your birthright for a bowl of soup type of thing.
Yeah. So one is inspiration. So reading good books, listen to good podcasts, and stand around winners, right? Because you see what they're doing, and that gives you ideas and inspires you. Second is organization, because the fact is that you're going to get better results, have more fun doing it, less stress, and get the right things done at the right time in the right way if you're more organized. I love to ask audiences that. How many of you would agree that if you are more organized and your team members were more organized, you get more stuff done? 100%.
Right.
It's been said.
Keep your hand up if you are organized. All the hands go down, right?
Yeah. And so I heard John Maxwell say this one time. I don't know who originated the quote, but I heard John say one time that more time is wasted looking for things that are lost than anything else. You ever been looking for your sunglasses and you pass by a mirror and you go, oh, there they are.
14 minutes later.
Right, yeah. And so number 2 is organized, because organization, because there's only a certain amount of time in the day. So if you can, do the whole the whole exercise of big rock, little rock, pebbles, sand, water, that whole thing, the tyranny of the urgent. If you can organize your day and prioritize, and then of course delegate and things like that, the more that you can get done with the time that you have. So organization. Third is training, because the fact is that when we have more training in business, like for example, I wrote a book called The 5 Secrets of a Phenomenal Business. There's 5 areas in business that business owners, small business owners, need to be trained in. 1 is leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. 2 is marketing. 3 is sales. 4 is service or operations, however you want to say that. And then 5 is finance or administration or tracking, right? And so small business owners haven't been thoroughly trained in those areas. So the more training, the better training you get in those areas, the more confidence you have. That's what my coach has always told me, is that training breeds confidence. Like think of a boxer, okay? So if you've trained, then you step in the ring and you're ready for that fight, right? You're prepared.
I just watched Rocky 2 with my boys 2 nights ago.
Oh,
I've
yeah?
never seen it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gave me some inspiration. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So John Wooden was famous for practice, right? He said, when we show up on the basketball court, he'd roll up the program, sit down and just watch, because they're prepared. Mr. Ziegler said, you're born to win, but in order to be the winner you're born to be, you've got to plan to win and prepare to win before you can expect to win. But if you plan to win and prepare to win, you can expect to win, right? So training. Now, although those 3 things are awesome and they're true, most of that is not going to happen outside of the 4th key. The 4th key is the major key. If you're going to implement, you're going to perform. So the opposite of failure to implement is performing, and performance at a higher level, right?
Right.
And so if you're going to perform at a high level, you need a coach. You not only need to have the desire, be inspired, you not only need to have your game plan worked out and, organized and, all that. You not only need training, but you need a coach. The problem is that just one coach isn't usually enough, because although a great coach can really help you figure a lot of stuff out, really what a coach mainly does is help you get perspective on where you are now compared to where you want to go, what that gap is, and then helping you discover ways to, fill that gap. But there's one thing that's more important than just a coach, and that is a community. You and I talked about this on the way here in the car. When you have a group of coaches, a group of peers, when you have a group that you belong to, I wrote a book called The Power of Community. Every human being has a longing for belonging. And when you're part of a group of winners and you get the support, you get the encouragement, you get the accountability that you need, you're going to show up for that group. And that group is going to help you grow.
Yeah. By even in some, I've noticed almost like osmosis, like proximity itself is leverage.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't become smarter or do something different. Because I think belief is transferable.
It is.
You can borrow it.
That's right. Yeah.
And so when you're in these rooms of people thinking bigger than you, even though you feel like a fraud at first, you start to feel like you belong, right?
Yeah.
You show up different. It's an identity thing again.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, because as a group, you're becoming something different than you are by yourself, right? And so, community is where transformation really happens. And so that's why we do a lot of small groups. That's why you guys do a lot of small groups, is, you have people around you. And today, in today's world, we're connected more than ever before digitally, but we feel more isolated than ever before.
Right.
And so in that,
Very true, especially young people.
Yeah, especially young people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to say the key to success was a new Facebook ads hack or something. I don't want it to do all that stuff.
I barely log into my Facebook half the time. I was like, texting one of my people like, hey, what's my Facebook password?
I have to do stuff? You mean I have to like put myself out there and have, no, man. Yeah. Myron, I wanted to tell you one other thing. He has this teaching about the difference between transformation and conformation. Like to be conformed, the Bible says be conformed by the renewing of your mind. It says don't be conformed by the world,
right?
But be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah.
And conformation is like, General Motors stamping a quarter panel, right? It's conforming, it's outside pressure, making something in its image, right? Yeah. So it's like external. And it reminded me when you were talking about internal and external, because transformation is from inside out. It's you happening to the world. And all this stuff sounds like woo-woo when you're just panicking financially. And I remember listening to stuff like this, being like, no, like, do I use blue or red on my flyer? Like, no, what do I do right now? And we do need tactics and stuff too.
Sure.
So maybe as a good way to round out the interview, if someone wanted to get a quick win or do something, like what handful of things would you tell them, do this now to either immediately shift your perspective, create more margin in their business, get breathing room? If someone's in an emergency scenario, where would you start when you're diagnosing their business?
Well, so, if you're diagnosing a business, then the first scorecard you look at is the financial scorecard.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter what all the reasons are. The fact is that if you're not making money and you don't know how to read a financial statement, you don't need to. Get my friend's book, Ellen Rohr, Where Did the Money Go? And then she has one called How Much Do I Charge? So at the end of the day, you have to make money in that business. Even if you're making a difference in people's lives, if you're losing money, you can't do that forever.
Well, I think a lot of people run their business like a nonprofit on accident.
Right, exactly.
Like, whoops, wait, I didn't mean to do it like that.
Because they don't understand their numbers. So the simplest thing, like right now, like rubber meets the road, learn how to sell. Go sell something.
Yeah.
Put money in the bank.
Right.
Number one. But I'll say it a different way. I'll share with you the greatest business lesson that I've ever learned and the greatest life lesson that I've ever learned. The greatest business lesson that I've ever learned is that the one and only reason your business exists is to be a vehicle to help you achieve your life goals. So first, get in touch with what you really want out of life, because building a big business just to build a big business might put you in a place where you're totally unhappy and you don't have any of those things that everybody wants out of life. So your life goals will determine the kind of business that you need to have. Then you need to study marketing, you need to study sales, you need to understand service, and you need to understand the financials. And if you have people or you're going to hire people, you got to learn leadership, right? You got to learn those 5 secrets or 5 systems. Now, the next thing is the greatest life lesson that I've ever learned. And that is get around people who have already been where you want to be and who have a plan for you to follow. Some people just it's just instinct, right? They're not sure how they did it. They just see it. They feel it.
Yes, that's true.
Right? And they just boom, boom, boom. They just blow up. Well, how'd you do that? Well, I don't know. You just do it,
Do the stuff, yeah.
But when you find someone who has been where you want to be, and they have formulated a plan or understood the ingredients.
Yeah, I call it a map.
A map.
They have a framework, a map, a treasure map, a step. Yeah.
So what do you do when you want to climb a mountain? You have a guide, right?
I mean, That would be my recommendation. I guess you don't have to.
I got the ropes. I got the belay. I got
It'll
the
be
cleats.
fine.
Yeah.
It'll probably be fine.
Yeah. So back to coaching, back to, listen, people who have been successful in your industry, people been successful in what you want to do, most of the time, they have a high level of gratitude. They want to give back, and that's one of the ways that you can add value to them.
That's so true.
That's
just so true.
Yeah.
People are intimidated to talk to successful people, and they want to talk to you a lot of times. They don't want you to, can I pick your brain kind of stuff, but just showing gratitude. I want to recognize you on this with gratitude. So when I first started public speaking, I wanted to throw up probably for the first 50 times that I public speak. The number one fear of adults in America is public speaking. Number two fear is death. You ever heard that?
Yep.
So they'd rather, be in the coffin than giving the obituary or the eulogy, right? So, but you encouraged me so much, and you're such a polished pro, and you've done it a long time. And I got to speak at this event, and Howard went right after me and 25x'd what I had just done on stage. So I was discouraged a little bit, but also like, how do you do that? And he was so kind and spent time with me, which inspired me to keep going. Like, I wouldn't be doing this. You were a marker on my journey that God had for me, that you played a role you didn't understand that you played. So thank you. I want to honor you for that.
My pleasure.
And in conclusion, the last question I have is, in what ways are you different or have changed now compared to before all the success? And not the obvious ones, but I guess what I'm asking is, did you forget what it was like? Because sometimes when we tell the story, it becomes a soundbite in our origin story. And we don't mean to, but you can forget. Has that happened to you? Have you lost hunger? Are you as ambitious now as you were before? I'm curious just to get below the surface of the polished, perfect answer of, where are you at today? How are you different? What are you excited about? What freaks you out now? That type of stuff.
How much time do you have?
Is
the counseling session after the podcast?
Well, I tried to talk about this stuff with Tommy too, because Tommy, everybody asks him the same stuff, and he says stuff.
Yeah.
And then he says the stuff, but I'm like, who are you really? When you got a 9-figure wire transfer, right? What was that like? And then what are you scared of now? And I think that's important. So
so good question. I don't want to say this, but it's probably true. That in some ways I probably have forgotten what it's like, because I'm truly one of the most blessed people on the planet. I have people to do pretty much everything for me. I have such a great team. And why do something that I don't want to do if I can pay for somebody? So I'm a little bit spoiled. My wife says I'm high maintenance, but I pay for it.
Yeah.
So probably, even though I don't want to admit that, it's probably true, but I still have the compassion and the heart for people.
You still got that dog in you from back in the day?
When necessary.
When necessary.
Yeah. But I probably care more about people today. Because I realize how good it could be for them. And they don't know it yet. Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially, So that's probably what's changed, is that I just now know it. There's a difference between that's possible, but I know that people can change. I know, I've seen it. I've just seen too much. There is a comfort zone to be careful of, because I'm not like today, I don't work for money anymore, right? So you wake up in a hotel room like I did this morning thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I walk outside and I run into somebody outside the elevator that's just presents this opportunity, or somebody I can help or whatever. I come do this with you. We help people. You go speak and everybody's, excited. But I really, really do what I do today for my team so they can reach their goals, and for my clients. I really don't do it for myself anymore, And not that I'm like super rich, but so there's a little bit of a challenge there, because if you're not internally motivated or internally inspired, when you have everything that you need. It's a great question for Tommy. Great question for Tommy. But Tommy's young, he's energetic, and he's got a lot of like goals. Mm-hmm. My goal is to sit on the beach with my grandkids. That's it,
I think
everything else I do is for other people, truly.
Well, you're living in contribution.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think a lot of people out there want to do that. They can't, though.
Right.
When the oxygen mask drops, you have to put it on yourself before you put it on the kid.
Yeah.
And when you're in survival mode instead of, thrival mode, that's kind of weird and cheesy, but when you're just surviving,
thrival mode.
You can't you can't have that same heart, because you're trying to just meet your own needs and tread water, stay above water.
Yeah.
I think you're awesome.
Thank you.
You have the bracelet on that says phenomenal. And
well, it actually says Mr. Phenomenal. And that is because my granddaughter made this for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, in corporate consulting, I'll sign off with this. There's this idea known as second and third order consequences, meaning everything you do has this kind of ripple effect you're not paying attention to. If you plant a tree, it will aerate the soil and drainage is better, and it will provide a house for birds. And that's not why you planted the tree, but it's still true. Those things happen, right? And so you going from $3,000 wedding money to starting a business, to your wife almost leaving you, to God meeting you at the right time at the right place, all the decisions you made from the E-Myth to the thing and the coaching to be where you are now, it's unquantifiable how many people you've helped, because the direct people you've helped, like me, that's easy to measure. But how many people have I helped because you helped me? Those are second and third and fourth and 10th order consequence. I just think that's mind-blowing. I want to honor you. Thank you for doing this after a long day. Do you have final thoughts? Where can people follow you? How can they get one of your many books? Sign us off, Howard.
Sure. So go to howardpartridge.com. You'll get free business training. You'll get one of my books for free, The 5 Secrets of a Phenomenal Business. And speaking of the whole phenomenal thing, I'll just say a couple things about that.
Sure.
Okay, I like to tell people, I make friends all day long, every day, okay? And the way I do it is I ask this question, I'll ask this question to the audience. Do you know that you're phenomenal? And people go, like perfect strangers.
Right.
Check it in the hotel.
They get all weird. They're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, check it in the hotel last night. The front desk clerk, she's like, oh, well, so you get all kinds of different answers. Well, of course I am, whatever.
Right.
So then I say, do you know why you're phenomenal?
Ooh, you baited them.
Yeah. Well, you're phenomenal because you're made in the image of God. As Mr. Ziegler said, you're born to win, designed for accomplishment, engineered for success, endowed with the seeds of greatness. After all, God don't make no junk. Yes. You are a phenomenal product, created to be phenomenal, do phenomenal things, and have a phenomenal life. So God made you for a reason, for a purpose. You're born for a purpose. God has a plan for your life. And so when you understand that you are a phenomenal product, That's the name of my corporate company. I thought it was a mistake because when I named it Phenomenal Products, we sold information products, right? DVDs, CDs, manuals, stuff like that. You and I both did back in the day. Until my mentor came and spoke at my conference, and he said, Howard's products are phenomenal, but I'm here to tell you that you are the phenomenal product. So that's what I'd like to close with. That's what the whole phenomenal thing is about, is that you are the phenomenal product, and God wants to mold you, make you, and my prayer for you is that you would live the life and have the business that God wants you to have. And I'm just a facilitator to help you get there.
So good. Yeah, so we're all products.
Yeah.
And if the product isn't working correctly, meaning we're not, maybe we should talk to the manufacturer. What do you think?
Get the manufacturer's instruction manual, which is the word of God.
Try to use your toaster to wash the dishes. It isn't going to work very good. Right?
Yeah, it could be dangerous.
It's so good. Yeah, go to howardpartridge.com.
Yeah.
Thank you, Howard. You're amazing.
Thank you.
And we'll see you later. Hey, you have a mission, mandate, purpose, and destiny. Love you. Bye.